Okay, let's go to Daf Dalin Amud Aleph. The truth is, this topic is way bigger than what we're going to cover today. Nevertheless, we'll start it. It has many sniffing this topic. I figured yesterday was Chadaram, yeah? Chadaram. And I wasn't shocked. I saw signs all over already, Chadaram, right? So if a person, while he was Chadaram, broke something that belonged to somebody else, would he be Chayiv? Yeah. Why, yeah? Huh? Adam Mu'ad L'Olam. That's what you say. Is that your final answer? Why not? Because I scared you.
No, it's later on because he had match or whatever. That was.
And if a person's shikah is not chayiv if it's hezek? Huh? Depends how shikah.
If only if it was einus that he was shikah.
Okay, Rabbi says. So let's start. So that's why I figured I'm going to learn. I'm going to learn something that's davar be'itoy matoiv. We'll learn something relevant to Chadaram. So Daf Dalid, 4 or 5 lines, whatever. 5, 6 lines in the bottom of the page. The Gemara goes on, and the Gemara speaks about is Mava Adam, is Mava Shane, yeah? So the Gemara says, I'm going to start in the middle. What is this? 2, 4, 8, 10 lines in the bottom of the page. Dalad Amud Aleph. V'chishur darkei lahazik. He says, "Atzad shava shebehem shedarkem lahazik. V'moina malecha. Yav shemirasna malecha." For the Gemara, shur darkei lahazik. After the Gemara, yeah, b'mud. Amud is dark. Dalad Amud Aleph. Amud is darkei lahazik. For the Gemara, umur darkei lahazik. What does it mean? It's interesting. If you learn, the more you learn the Gemara, you'll learn that Torah doesn't only know the religious part. Torah knows the facts of life. You're going to learn weiter what is the nature of each animal. What's dark of an animal to break? What's dark of an animal to eat? What sounds animal makes? Because if it makes a different sound, which way it jumps, which way it walks. Because if it's not dark, it depends if it falls into what category. Karen, Shane, Regal, right? So you'll learn further and further. The Chachamim knew Pashut how animals work. I have a shiur in Chayshemish with the groups, and the guy said, "Oh, Rabbi Olam, you got to take us to a zoo because we have to figure this all out. We have to see that." But over here, the Gemara says, "V'chishur darkei," we automatically think that an animal is dangerous. No, darkei lahazik. And it only damages when it wants to eat. If it sees a box of tomatoes, it'll eat it. That's darkei, because hanasam. Right? But if stam to hurt things, it's not darkei lahazik. And for the Gemara, kiven the yaid, once it became a mud, urchehu. It's normal. For the Gemara, adam darkei lahazik. You're putting according to one shita, mav is adam. Adam is darkei lahazik. I shouldn't say this on the record, but adam darkei lahazik. The Gemara is surprised that a person goes around causing damage. The Welt says a joke. Why is a guy your age called a bacher? What does the word bacher mean? I have a chsiddush shitayich, but what does bacher mean? Bacher means the real word should be a avreich. By the yeshiva it says. So the Welt says a joke. Bacher is a rashi tevis. Chaya ra v'dar yeshiva. A wild animal that's contained in 4 walls. So in other words, according to the Welt, it's dark and lahazik. But no, the Gemara is surprised. Adam dark and lahazik. And for the Gemara, yeah, b'yoshen. He's sleeping. For the Gemara, yarshin dark and lahazik. When he's sleeping, he's dark and lahazik. He's sleeping, he's like, shnosei arval. What kind of dark and lahazik? And for the Gemara, kivan, the kayif with parshit. Once he bends down, he lays down to go to sleep. Urechehu. It's since he spreads his leg out, orkehu zagrashi l'shaber kalim, he will break anything. People roll, people do, right? It's normal. That's why once is he answering the question? He says once it's yoshin, what? All right, but he calls it's normal for a person, if there are kalim near him, he's going to break it. So the Gemara is not finished there. For the Gemara, okay, you answered the darkei lahazik part. But Ushmirasan Alecha, it says you have to watch it. I have to watch my animal. What does it mean I have to watch myself? Adam Shmir, and for the Gemara, Adam Shmir is Gufay Yolo. And the Gemara asks, Adam Shmir, what does it mean? He says, a person has to watch out to make sure he doesn't do anything stupid. For the Gemara, Ulatame, Chodetani Karna. Arba Avis Nezikim va'Adam Echel Mehem. Adam Shmiras. Guf, the same question is over there. How does it make sense? Shmiras on Alecha. Shmiras on Alecha makes sense by something. Something which is your mumming. Make sure you close the fence. Make sure you have a leash. Make sure you take care of it. But how does it say? How does it make sense to say Shmiras on Alecha about yourself? And the Gemara only answers, Adam Shmiras Gufay Olav. You have to take care of yourself. What's the question? What's the answer? What did the Gemara think? What did the Gemara answer? The Gemara asked, why? I have to take care of myself. Shmiras, you do have to. And he just brings a raya, how he rolls the question onto another brisa, another statement. But what was the question and what was the answer? All right, look at Tosfos. Even the kayif upashe, once a person lays down, urchehu, it's normal for him to damage whatever's nearby. Zok Tosfos, b'Yerushalmi yesh, in Yerushalmi we find, the yoshin loy mechayiv ela kishehishkiv atzmai eitzel hakelim. That if a person damages something when he's sleeping, he will only be chayiv if he lay down when the kelim were already there. Avo im yoshin, if he went to sleep, ve'heviu kelim etzlei, and somebody decided to put the box of crystal dishes right next to the sleeping person, v'shavram, and then he broke him. Putter. Why is that putter? Deheim garmaloi. He's not the one that caused the damage. The person who put the box of dishes down, they made the damage. V'chein im hoya yoshin. If a person was sleeping, and somebody else went sleeping right next to him, and while the new guy, slept next to him, he rolled, and the Ezekiel says, "Harishin Potter va'achrein chayev." All right, so now we have the din Adamur L'Olam, and we have the Svara of Shmiras and Alecha, how it applies, and then there's a Yerushalmi. Now I'll go to my paper. In my paper will have, everybody has one? In my paper you'll have all the other places, I shouldn't say all, many other places where this sugya comes up. Later on, in the Mishnah, in Daf Chavav Amid Aleph, the Mishnah says, Adam Mur, this quote over here also, right? Adam Mur D'Lo'elam, a person is always responsible for his actions. Bein shoygeg, bein mezid. Accidental or intentional. Bein ar, bein yoshin. Whether he's awake or he's sleeping. And the Mishnah goes on to say, Sima sein chaveiroi. If somebody, Rahman al-Tlan, blinds his friend, he hurt his eye, or vishiber es kalim, mishalim nezek shalim. Now, why the Mishnah brought the second thing, vishiber es kalim? When you get to Daf Chavav, the Gemara asked that question. Frekti Gemara minahani mili. I jumped around. How do we know that a person's adam mur l'olam bein shegeg bein mezid? Chizkiya says v'chein tana devei Chizkiya amar kra. The pasuk says petza tachas patza. If a person hurts somebody, so if he did it over there, the pasuk is talking about he did it intentionally. It says you have to pay, and then the pasuk continues. Besides for paying. Petza tachatz patza. The pasuk adds many extra words. Why did the pasuk add many extra words? L'chayvei ala shoygei kemezid. Not only when they had a fight and the guy knew what he was doing, he's chayev. the extra words in the pasuk to say even if it happens b'shoigig. But then the Gemara adds v'ala oynes keratzin. So now we have three statements. We have shoigig mazid, the Mishnah said, or yashan, awake or sleeping. Because the pasuk before that already says you hurt somebody, you have to pay. Then he goes into details. What's the extra details? So the extra details is even about shoigig. Okay, but then there's oynes keratzin. The Gemara adds, what is oynes? What is shoigig? What is the simple types? What's the difference between the shoigig? What is shoigig? What's mazid? Or yashin? What is it? Because an oynes. A shoigig is a mistake. A oynes is not a mistake. I might have done it knowing, but I was forced to it, right? Or a fluke. Oynes is a bigger than a shoigig. But now we see there's no loopholes here. A person is responsible. Shoigig, obviously mazid. Shoigig, oynes, every way he's responsible. The next thing I quote is this Tosfos. But Tosfos brings from the Yerushalmi. The Yerushalmi says, oh, not every time I'm chayiv. I'm only chayiv if I went to sleep first. I'm only chayiv if I went to sleep when the kalim were already there. But if I went, what happened to oynes? What happened to shoigig and mazid? What happened there? So Tosfos says, I made those big words. I made those words bigger. Tosfos says, no, that's different. Even though you mechayiv even a shoigig and a oynes, this is different. Hein garmuloi. How does that answer the problem? From one hand, I should be chayiv because I'm chayiv under any circumstance. From the other hand, Tosfos says no. In the case where the kalim came later, I'm pater because hein garmuloi. What does that mean? How does that answer the problem?
Are the words specific, like they caused it instead? Like,
but you just told me I'm chayiv under any circumstance. Bein oynes. If a guy,
it didn't come from the person. It came from the person that put down the kalim.
He already knew. He knew before going to sleep it was okay.
So what? But that's how, what's any different than an oynes? What's any different than an oynes and a shoigig? All right, just hold your horses with this question. The Rambam adds one more. The Rambam in Hilchos Chayvul L'Mazik, Perek Aleph Halacha Yud Aleph says, Adam Muad La'ilam, Bein Shoigig, Bein Mazid, Bein Ar, Bein Yashin, Bein Shikar, Choderam, Bein Shikar. Now, where would you put Shikar? Would it be different than Shoigig? It's even. What is it? How does the Rambam even know that a shikar yimachayev? Im chavo b'chaveirei, oy hezik ma mechaveirei mishalem and a yafa sheben el chasev. Bamed dvarim amurim. See, the Rambam plays on both ends. Bamed dvarim amurim sha yoshin chayev l'shalem v'shnayim she yoshnu ke'echad v'snap and the they both went to sleep, lights out, regular time. V'nishapech echad mehem v'hizik es chaveirei kol begodav. Fine. Avol hoya echad yoshin uva acher v'shachav etzloi. No, even though you're chayiv geshoigig, even though you're chayiv oynes, even though you're chayiv a shikar, not that. Zeh shabach b'achroina hu hamud v'im ezikei yoshin pater, or like the Yerushalmi says, im einiach kli b'tzad yoshin v'shavrei pater shezeh shehinichai hu hamud shapesheya. So despite the fact that I should really be chayiv under any circumstance, even oynes, your pshia overrides my oynes. That he's using Tosfos as svara, yeah. The heim garmaloi. I'm not even a oynes here, or maybe I'm oynes, but this specific case, your pshia overrides my oynes. All right, Tosfos. This is a famous machlokes between the Tosfos and the Ramban. I don't know how far we'll get into this whole thing because I told you I have to start on time and finish in time. The Tosfos later on in Chav Zayin Amud Beis, Tosfos see it's Elam Habuch. Instead of the bold ones being the important ones, They became the light ones. I'm quoting a Tosfos of Chazayim on the basis of a machlokes with Tosfos and Ramban. When you say that a adam muad la'olam, even by a einus, every einus, a fluk sheba fluk, a einus gomer, you would also be chayiv. So look at Tosfos. Look at the words I highlighted. Tosfos says, the il marbin and einus karatzim ba'adam mamazik mi petza tachas petza. Oynes Gamor Loy Rabbi Rachmana. Even though the pasuk tells us that you're chayav for a oynes, that's a oynes. But a oynes Gamor, no, you can't blame somebody for doing a damage as a oynes Gamor. How do I know that? Huh? He says Lamashal Dahabi Yerushalmi. Again, he's quoting the same Yerushalmi. Poiter oisa isha yashan rishon imhezik l'sheni abah etzlei lishan. So since in the Tosfos that we had over here, that's a raya. Not every oynis yichayev. Even though the Gemara said oynis and the Gemara brought a pasuk, but this is not oynis. This oynis is not. One sec. Skip over to the next place. Next. There's a Mishnah later on that if two people were walking in the street, and the guy, one guy was carrying a barrel of wine, and he was walking in the front, the guy behind him was carrying a beam for his sukkah. He was carrying a beam behind. Now, who's supposed to watch? The guy in the front is looking frontward. The guy in the back should see who is he clapping, who's going to clap, right? So if the Baal HaChavis was Rishon, Baal Kaira Achrein, the din is, the in Amar Baal Chavis bin Nishbara Chavis Bekaira, if the guy up front decided to stop, middle of the highway, he gives a stop. The Nishbara Chavis Bekaira, Pater. Why? Because even though my Kaira damned, but it's Ainus. I'm not responsible. Huh?
Why did you stop?
Okay. But not, in other words, he's bringing it ayah. It's not a umbrella statement that I'm chayiv for everything. I started off showing you chayiv for einus, you chayiv for shogeg, you chayiv for shikr. Right? Here we have there. So what's going on? So Tosfos establishes like this. V'nira l'daktik, this is Tosfos Chavzayin Amud Beis, that not every einus, the adam hamazik, the mifter ba'einus, any time that we say that a person does become pater from ba'einus, mishum shehu ke'en geneva. Midatanya b'shilei umnin, amar v'chavis l'makom l'makom, somebody's transporting a barrel, the shavra, and the barrel broke. Rabbi Yehuda says, whose barrel was this? It belonged to somebody else? So Rabbi Yehuda says like this, Shaymer Chinam, if you were transferring, if you are Shaymer Chinam for that barrel, Yeshava. Why? Shaymer Chinam is chayiv on what? He's only chayiv on B'shia. He makes a shvur and he's off the hook. Noisei Sachar, if he's getting paid to watch this barrel, Yeshalim. Why is he? But he's pater in Ainus. Hashem is. Oh, so he's considering this. One second. V'hashta mid the chayiv noisei Sachar, since he says a noisei Sachar is chayiv. Upoiter shemer chinam v'loy mechayiv mitam adam amazik. He's not considering him a adam amazik. He's considering if it would be a adam amazik, even a ganav, even a shemer chinam would be chayiv. The fact that the shemer chinam is pater, the fact that the shemer chinam pater and the shemer sachar is chayiv, that means he's considering it like gneva. Shma minei. Let's establish this. The ba'oinus the ke'en gneva adam amazik pater. Umedame Rabbi Yehuda, and this gal the gneva, and therefore Rabbi Yehuda compares a person tripping. It's almost like a oinus gneva. Avo ba'oinus shehu ke'en aveda shehi kroiva l'pshia yoser, as the Gemara says, gneva kroiva la'oinus va'aveda kroiva l'pshia nira the adam hamazik chayiv. So Tosfos says it's not. Tosfos later on says not every oinus is free. It depends. There is a oinus, or the halachic term will be a oinus gamor, which Tosfos calls a oinus like gneva, he's pater. A oinus like aveda, he's chayiv. It's impossible to say he's only chayiv b'pshia. He's even chayiv of an oinus, which is part of b'pshia. What's an oinus part of b'pshia? Things that could happen. Things oinus like oinus gomer, which halacha says, then you're off. All right, so we chiseled it down. It's not complete oinus. Look at the Rambam. Huh? We'll soon see. What's the difference? Good. We'll soon see. Falling off a roof. You'll learn it later on. Fall off a roof, and as you're falling, something gets damaged. Ramban. The Ramban in Bava Metzia Perek Beis. The Ramban in Perek Beis. Ramban Bava Metzia Perek Beis. Bava Metzia Daf Pei Beis Amid Beis, not Perek Beis. The Ramban quotes this Tosfos. Where Tosfos says the difference between a Einus Gomor, a Einus which is Karav L'Gneva, or Einus which is Karav L'Aveda. And look at the bold words. He starts off by quoting the Tosfos. The E Efshar Lahamida. I can't agree with Tosfos. The Hasam Mishum Desheni Pasha Ba'atzmai. Remember the Yerushalmi that Tosfos quotes over here. Tosfos gave a reason, and instead of using the reason as the Tam Leheter, Tosfos builds a Pisan V'Ramtzis, a Shita Leheter. Tosfos over here says, not because it's a Einis Gomer. When I go to sleep on the floor, I go to sleep in my bed, and it's nothing around me, and somebody comes later on and brings dishes, that should be part because it's Einis Gomer. I went to sleep, nothing around me. It should be considered Einis Gomer. So if Tosfos really believed the Einis Gomer is Pater, Tosfos should have said, you know why the Yerushalmi says that in this case it's Pater? Is because it's Einis Gomer. But Tosfos himself said a different reason. And the Ramban is banking on that reason. The reason is, it's even Einis Gomer, you're chayiv. Einis Gomer, you're chayiv. But over here, the reason why you're not chayiv, because his Shia overrides your Einis. It's nothing to do with the fact that it's an Einis Gomer. If it would only be an Einis Gomer, you would talk to be chayiv. The E.F. Shila Hamida, the Hasam, Mishum Desheni Pasha Ba'atzmai. And he brings, again, I quoted before the Tosfos, the other rayas Tosfos brings, and he himself has to slug up all the rayas. So go to the next words I bold. V'soiv davar, was kim lernen. Was alvai, ken and kennst du, willen willst du nicht. V'soiv davar, and the end is, Kiv and sheiskiru chachamim ba'oines nizikin even munachas b'chekoi, since amongst the stories of Oines, the Chachamim also mentioned something happened when you had a stone in your pocket and you didn't even realize. V'loi hikir ba ma'olam v'nafal min agag beruach she'einem mitzuya. And one of the examples is if a person falls down from a roof and a ruach she'einem mitzuya, harei hiskiru soifa einsim kulam. He mentioned the most furthest case that a person, the ruach she'einem mitzuya afilu ka'isa she'eliyo, I'll be responsible. So don't tell me a Einis Gomer your pater. Tosfos holds according to the Tosfos later on. It's mashma. Tosfos holds there's a difference in Einis when you're chayiv or not. Einis you chayiv, Einis Gomer your pater. The Ramban says you're chayiv of every Einis, every Einis. We see by the Yerushalmi, I would have been chayiv. It's because Hein Garmelate, the Pshia, he was the B'Sheya. What's the basis of this machlekes? What time is it? What's the basis of this machlekes? The basis of this machlekes is this Gemara we just learned. Remember, I started off asking you, what's the difference between the Havamin of the Gemara and the end of the Gemara? The Gemara asked, Adam Shmiras Gufay Allah. And the Gemara answered, yeah, Adam Shmiras. What did you think? What did you answer? The Chatchila, the Gemara thought that there is a difference between protecting your guns, your dogs, things that could cause harm, your mamoinoi, versus making sure you don't cause damage. The Gemara thought, my gun, I have to put in a safe. My animal, I have to, the chiyuv, The chiyuv of memoinoi is the shmira. My whole chiyuv of making sure it doesn't cause damage is the shmira. It's not the teitzah. Make sure. So the Gemara asks, by a person, is the shmira, right? What does the Gemara answer? So there's two ways how to learn the Gemara's answer. One way to learn the Gemara's answer is, you're right. Just like by a behema and by a gun and by anything hazardous, the chiyuv is the shmira. You have to make sure you don't get yourself into trouble. The chiyuv is your shmira. Stay out of trouble. And so the Gemara thought that there was a difference between Mammon and Adam, and the Gemara says there's no difference. By both of them is keep them out of trouble. Both of them shmiras malacha. The second way how to learn it is no. Memoinoi is taka. The most you could do is just make sure you have the barn closed, make sure the door is closed, make sure the gun is in the safe. It should protect from a possible thing. But you're different. You're different because by you have to just make sure that they saw that no body part of yours ever causes a hezek. It's taka different. So Eibazai, what does the Gemara mean when the Gemara says Shmiras an Alecha? What does the Gemara mean that it means Shmiras an Alecha? It means because I have to make sure that I don't cause any damage, smart thing to do is just do preventive medicine. So is it the teitzah, is the chiyuv to make sure to put the emphasis on the shmira, just like you put the emphasis on the shmira on the gun, on the animal? The gun might be different, right? Why might the gun be different than an animal? Is a gun a behema or bardas? Not bardas. All right. But if by the mammon, the emphasis is on the shmira, by the other mamazik, the emphasis is make sure your fingers, your feet, your head doesn't cause any damage. As a teitzah from that, it's also shmiras hamalecha. The my nafkamina is shikr. The nafkamina would be the shikr. First of all, the Taisus and the Rambam, the Taisus and the Ramban, you have to know that. The difference between when you say Rambam and Rambam. When you're saying Ramosh Shemayim and Asvardi, the diak is on the Reish, the Rambam. When you're saying the Ramban, the diak is on the base. That's Minig Yisrael, whatever. So, Ramban. The machloikas between the Taisus and the Ramban is exactly this. Taisus, one of the shittas held that it's all on the shmira. Just like by the mammon amazik is on the shmira, the adam amazik is on the shmira. So if I went to sleep and there's nothing there, I did my shmira. So I'm exempt. The second opinion says it's not on the shmira, it's on the my teitzah samaisa. I am not allowed to make sure, I have to make sure nothing of me causes damage. Huh? The difference and the chiyuv of shmira. I have to make sure nothing, and if it does cause damage, I'll be chayiv no matter what. Even oinus gomer. If it's all on the shmira, oinus gomer, I wouldn't be chayiv because I did my shmira. If it's on the teitzah that I cause damage, then even oinus I'm chayiv. Why over here I'm not chayiv? Because hadei hein garmuloi. They were to be sheir, not me. The nafkamina between these two perushim would be a shikr. The Rambam adds shikr. With Ramban for sure says Yechayev, because the Ramban says that even a ein is gomer. What is Tosfos hold by this shikr? So I'm just going to let you figure that out. Rabbi Say, I'm running short in time. I want to read what the Shulchan Aruch says. Look me, Shulchan Aruch Choshen Mishpat Siman Shinai and Ches. Asur lahazik mamin chaver. Remember last year I spoke about the asur, yeah? Asur lahazik mamin chaver. The im hezikoi, afal pi shein inena, What's the difference? Avol b'shein and then it's like keren, right? Avol b'shein and then chayev l'shalom nezik shalim. Bein shahaya shoygeg, bein shahaya anus. That's the words of the Mechaber. The parentheses are the words of the Ramah. Comes the Ramah. V'dafka she'enei oines gomer. Who's that? It's Tosfos. It's Tosfos. He has to fill that in, right? The Shach. I quote the Shach. The Shach quotes v'dafka she'enei onus. He must probably be the first Gerser didn't say oines gomer. He says haloshem begumgum v'kacha v'leileimer. V'yesh omer dafka she'enei oines gomer. The Meloshen Rambam and Mechaber mashma the ein chiluk because according to the Mechaber and the Rambam it's mashma even a shikar every oinus, yeah. V'chein kaso Rav Magid the Rambam ein chiluk, so he has to only add the words gomer. So the gomer is the shita of Tosfos. Now, it's oinus gomer. The only thing is he should have not drink in advance, but went. But that's that. You can't. You're punishing him now for he took extra mashka. That's one of the svaras that the Aruch HaShulchan says that Tosfos can even hold like the Rambam because of your svara. Even though Tosfos holds Oinus Gomer is pater, but Shikr might be different. Okay. Now about the Chadaram. Look at this. Look at the Ramah. Ramah Sif Tes. I gotta go soon. Bachrim haroichvim, the Sif Tes over there in Shinayin Ches. Bachrim are dancing by chasnas. The Yiziku zeh Mami Chaveri. And when you're dancing by a chasna, you made a kula, and you broke somebody's glasses. You did it derech simcha v'schayk. Or v'chein b'shar dvar simcha, the same shayla comes up in Hilchas Purim. You broke somebody's glasses, you broke somebody's thing. Hoyel v'nagul kain peturim. However, it finishes off the Ramah. Mikol mokim imnira lebezdin lasis yog v'geder or a shutz b'yadam. So not to allow somebody to drink a lot by bringing would be a preferable thing. Okay, go to the. Now I'm going to spend 2 minutes on the topic I wanted to spend much longer, and that is we just said that Yoshin, you're responsible. Yoshin, you're responsible. Unless Ayin Gomer, according to some shittas. What is the status of a person who is Yoshin? Legabi Chiyuv mitzvahs. So look at a couple examples they brought here. In Yeridei Siman Shinayin Beis, the Shulchan Aruch says like this. Okay, we're not going to have time to learn the whole sif. If you look at the last line of that sif, the Ramah says like this: Koyin Shu Yoshin. A Koyin fell asleep, umes imoy ba'oil. And Rahman al-Islam, there's a mess in the same oil. The kohen is not allowed to be in the same oil as a mess. Is it a chiyuv to wake the person up and tell him, you can't be here? Says the Ramah, tzrichin lahakitza, you must wake him up, ulahagid loy, and tell him kadesh yetze. Why is this halacha interesting? Because from one hand, you could say, lush lafim. He's anyway sleeping. But a person, when he's sleeping, still has chiyuvim. So I quote over here a very interesting psak. It's not like it's Lubavitcher's, but from Rabbi Shlomo Zalman Auerbach and Halicha Shlomo and Sukkot Perek Tes Sif Yud Zayin. He speaks for those who sleep in the sukkah. And a guy was sitting by a Gemara in his house, even though a Gemara is supposed to learn in the sukkah also. He's sitting by a Gemara in his house. And he fell asleep. Should you wake him up and tell him, Mr. Gerai in the sukkah? So Shlomo Zalman Auerbach says, Misha nirdam chutz l'sukkah, you don't have to wake him up. Why don't you have to wake him up? Or, let's say he says even a bigger chiddush. If a guy is sleeping in the sukkah and you need space for other people to eat, pick him up and take him out. I don't understand. Sleeping in the sukkah for them is just as important. Reb Shlomo Zalman Auerbach paskins that because when you're sleeping, you're not here, you're part of Mikol HaMitzvahs. So he doesn't. You have to go to sleep. It comes like this: you have to go to sleep in the sukkah, but once you're sleeping, you could push you out. Or if you're sleeping out of the sukkah, I don't have to tell you to come in. So there's a mahalach over here that a sleeping person is not a bar chiyuv. A minute ago, we just learned the halacha that contradicts it. The kohen. This is a shaila that Dayan Weiss in Eretz Yisrael asks on Rab Shlomo Zalman Auerbach. He says we could bring a shaila from our nezikin also, but a kohen that's sleeping outside, you have to, and sleeping in the oil, you have to wake him up and tell him get out. Are you sleeping? If he's sleeping, let him sleep. Is there Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch Chelik Aleph here? A quick one, because I don't. Chelik Aleph. Where do we know? Okay, I'm waiting. Where do we know when the Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch comes up? Could you be mitzaref? I'm sure it happens here a lot. A guy sleeping in the middle in the room, and you need him for part of the minyan. Could you use a yoshen as part of the minyan? You have 10 people, 9 people are davening, and 9 people are up to date, but the yoshen, a 10th person is sleeping in the room. So the Alter Rebbe says, okay, come here, I'm going to say it from memory. Huh?
You always have to be answered.
Huh?
You always have to be answered. You always have to be answered.
You don't necessarily have to be able to answer. If there's 10 people in the room, huh? No, it's a separate thing. If there are 10 people in the room and one person cannot answer, it could be, it's good enough, right? Shemei Kaina. Huh? 1 second, you'll check. Look in Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch Siman Nun Hey Sif Ches. So the Alter Rebbe says, since we say that if there are 10 people in the room, even if one person is not available, it's a good minyan. How about a yoshen? So the Alter Rebbe says maybe a yoshen will also count. Oh, that means a yoshen is a bar chiyuv. The Alter Rebbe himself says, but for a minyan, I don't like this, because since when a person sleeps, his neshama goes up, so it's not anymore. I think the Alter Rebbe's lashon over there is sepashnish along that line. For a dover should be kedusha, should have something like a piece of meat laying in the room. You need a lebedik mensch. But mitzad halacha, you see that a yoshen is responsible for what he has to do. Anyway, so we see today I discussed this flips both sides. Adamud loilam, under all circumstances. Oinus, machlekes Rambam, machlekes Tosfos and Ramban. If even by a oinus gomer, Tosfos says not by a oinus gomer. Emphasis from Tosfos, you don't have a raya, because Tosfos could be that he holds the chayiv even a oinus gomer, but it's only because harei hein garmuloi. The Ramban says for sure you're chayiv at every oinus, right? And then shikr came along, and the question is, how does shikr fill in? All right.